Hey everyone, I'm Connie,
And I'm Noelle.
and we are product managers on the Data Factory team. We're super excited to announce the launch of our brand new podcast series, the Data Integration Station. So, whether you're a seasoned Data Factory enthusiast or a newcomer to Microsoft Fabric eager to explore fresh content, we promise to teach you something new every month. Each episode will bring you quick, insightful conversations with the people behind the product and avid users of the product.
You might remember some of our old monthly live streams. This new monthly series will revamp some of that content, but we'll bring some fresh new faces in, whether it be other PMs on our team, some customers, and some other people at Microsoft that we like to work with, like the cats. And they will all share their expertise, their experiences, and insights on different Fabric Data Factory topics um, related to a lot of different feature areas. We're excited to kick this off with an episode on data flow parameters with our friend Mike and a chat with a special guest on building pipelines using a medallion architecture. So, without further ado, let's get started. We're so excited here for our first guest, who is a member of our own PM team, Miguel Escobar. We're so happy to have you on our podcast for our first episode, and we'd love for you to just introduce yourself to all of our watchers and to let them know what it is that you're doing on our team and some of the things that you've been working on.
Awesome. So yeah, my name is Miguel Escobar. I'm a senior product manager for the data integration team, and I primarily work on data flows and the Power Query experience. Um, in the past few months, one of my core priorities has been to be leading the effort for parameterization of data flows, and that's something that I'm hoping that we can talk later.
Yeah, so cool. And if you aren't familiar with our team, you might have also seen Mike in the chats in the community because he's a big community guy as well. So I'm sure you've seen his LinkedIn and you might have seen him responding to you, your requests on the ideas form, and now you have a face to the name. So I guess with the parameterization of data flows, can you talk us through what this means and why this is such an important feature for customers?
Yeah, so parameterization of data flows in general has been a request probably since the start or the conception of data flows back in 2018. And the whole idea is that you can create something that is uh, so flexible, so generic, that you can pass parameters to refresh or invoke that data flow. So it's a really dynamic, flexible, but robust solution that starts with just a single data flow and can be used for many different scenarios.
So cool. Do you think you could show us and can you show us it in action?
Sounds good. So I'm gonna share my screen and let's get to it. So there we go. Let me know if you can see it.
I can see your screen.
Awesome. So I'm gonna minimize this option. There we go. So I just wanted to just call out that this is a preview feature that we have available in Dataflow Gen 2 with CI/CD. What I'm showing you right now is just the documentation, but the idea is let's just let's just say that you have something today. So you have a data flow. A data flow that looks like this. And what happens is that within your data flow, you are leveraging a parameter. In my case, I have a region parameter. And this region parameter is doing a filter on this filter rows step. So I'm basically just filtering this column that's called, I believe it's region description. So this one. And I'm basically using this filter to just get the value or yeah, the region that is called Eastern. So this is my value that I get from this parameter. So what I would like to do is that I would like to actually make this dynamic so that I can pass a value for this region before I refresh the data, because I also have other data for other regions. To make that happen, the first thing that I need to do is go into the options of the data flow and go to this section that is called parameters. In parameters, I can go into enable parameters to be discovered and overridden and just check that box. Once that's checked, if you go back to the manage parameters dialog, you're going to notice at the top message bar that says public parameters mode is enabled. This learn more will take you back to that documentation article that I was just showing. But for now, all we need to do is click where it says save and run. If I click save and run, I can create a new pipeline, use the Dataflow refresh activity, which you can actually go here in Dataflow or go to activities and then find the Dataflow activity, which is right here. I already added it, but in here, all I have to do is find the workspace where my data flow is located and just select that data flow. In my case, it's called parameter test. And at the bottom, I'm going to be able to see the data flow parameters that I can pass. I can actually do from something like region and say, okay, region's going to be here. I'm going to say that this is Eastern, or perhaps this is going to be Northern. And if I just go into save, and then just run this. So let's go ahead and make sure that it's saved. There we go. I can actually click run. And that is simply gonna start running that data flow with that specific parameter, with a completely different value for that parameter. Now I can even go further while this is actually processing. It's gonna take around a minute to actually process. But let's just say that you also have a situation where you publish this with Get. So you have something that looks a little bit like this. And what happens is that I have this parameter that is called Lakehouse ID. I know that it is a parameter query because it has the basically the information of a parameter just right here.
Cool.
And I also have another one right here. And what I can do here is that I can use this Lakehouse ID and use it whatever in this script that I have. And that is effectively another way in which you can just invoke the parameters, even in some of the queries like this data destination query, where I can use the Lakehouse ID just to replace it however I want. Now, if I go back to my pipeline, I think that I actually failed. Let's just figure out why it actually failed. So if I go here into import, I think that something that happened is that I actually input the incorrect parameter name, and it's actually correct region. Let's see what's actually happening. So this is a situation that happened because of me. I have parameters that are actually set as required. So if I don't pass a value for those parameters that are actually set as required, it will actually fail. So I'm going to go ahead and
you would need both the region and Lakehouse ID because they're both required.
That is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and make that happen. So Lakehouse ID, go into the pipeline. All I have to do is just modify this. So I have another one, which is this one, Lakehouse ID. That is also a string. And I'm just going to grab the current value so we can actually just make sure that it runs. Pass its value. Save again, and then run it. Or just click run. You could have actually done the run. I will actually save first. And now it's actually trying to run with both parameters. But yeah, while we wait for this one, what are your thoughts about this one, Noelle?
It's super cool. It's definitely something that I know a lot of people have been asking for. So I think it's really awesome that we're able to let people use it now in their solutions. I think it's really cool that like we're able to see you debug and kind of figure out like what the issue was. Do you have any other hints or tips or general suggestions for what customers can do to or common things that customers should be checking on when they are debugging and they might see a failure happening?
So another thing that we recommend is that you can also go into the recent runs of that particular data flow and then get the results or the error messages directly from the recent runs. So in this case, if I go into the recent runs, it will actually give me more information about what happened. I think it's taking some time here to actually give me the information. So let me try again. Recent runs. Yeah, let me just try again. This time I'm actually gonna refresh my screen. Well, let me see if I can actually find another one that actually has some past refresh information. Another thing that, well, this is actually waiting for is that in the documentation, we do have a bunch of considerations and limitations. And we're
Cool.
also going to be adding another section for troubleshooting as well.
That's awesome.
Mhm. So we're here now. Click on recent runs. There we go. So we can see that the one that we just launched, it just succeeded. It's great. But if we
Sweet.
go with the one that actually just failed, then it's actually telling me like, hey, there's a missing argument for a required parameter. And I was missing the lakehouse ID.
Oh, very cool. Very handy.
Yep.
Cool. Well, this has been really helpful and super informative. Connie, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is super awesome. Are we able to see the updates inside of the data flows after the pipeline ran with the updated parameters?
Would you mind rephrasing that one?
Oh, like so we updated the parameters to sort for the Lakehouse ID and then also the northern region, right? I think
Mhm.
when we had first saw your data flow parameters, it was set to Eastern. So is it now updated to northern inside of the data flows?
That is a good question. So what happens is that what we have in the data flow it's pretty much static. So when you're passing the values of those parameters, it's only for execution. They're not really
Mhm.
modifying the content of the data flow. So that's a great question.
Okay, got it. So then it's only changed within the pipeline that you ran.
That is correct. So the information of what actually happened, and I think that we're actually going to be showcasing a small preview of what's to come. So something that we're adding in the recent runs is the ability for you to see what parameters you pass. So if I
Cool.
go into a specific one that didn't fail, you can also see the ones that actually failed. But you are going to see another section called the parameter values, and this were the actual values that we use.
Oh, that's super awesome to see.
Yep.
Yeah, this is super cool. Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this. This is a super exciting feature.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, before we let you go, Mike, is there anything else that you'd like to share or anything that I know you just showed us a little bit of a sneak peek, but anything else that might be coming that people can get excited about?
So we're working on many things. One of them is that we're trying to add support for more data types, and
Hmm.
we're also working internally on making sure that, uh, yeah, that there's more to come. That's all I can say for
More to
now.
go. Okay.
Uh,
Keep it hush hush.
but yeah, but one thing that I do encourage anyone to do is engage with us. You can find us on Reddit, you can find us on LinkedIn, you can find us on the Microsoft Data Factory community forum as well, or just post the idea on the Fabric Ideas portal. Uh,
That's true.
we're we're really eager to listen to what you have to say.
That's definitely true. And I'll make sure to include all of those links in the description so that people can easily find that after the episode. Well, thank you again, Mike, for walking us through this exciting new feature and for joining us today. Um, we are excited to see what's to come, and we really thank you for your time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike, for giving us a great demo on data flows parameters and pipelines. Now, please welcome our next guest, Erwin, who's going to be helping us learn how to use pipelines using the Medallion architecture. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Erwin. It's really great to have you here. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got started with the data space and even with Microsoft?
Yeah, thank you very much, Noelle and Connie. Yeah, my name is Erwin de Kreuk. I'm a principal consultant working for InSpark, a Microsoft partner in the Netherlands, and I'm the lead for data and AI team. So I'm the technical responsible guy, which everything we do within Fabric in the Fabric space. Yeah, where I started, yeah, that's I think a long time ago. I started with Data Factory, Synapse, and then I think like 3 years ago when we first get to see a little bit about Fabric, we switched over with our company directly to Fabric. So that's the only thing we do. We do Fabric, Fabric, and Fabric. And yeah, my core parts are like data integration, parameterization, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's super impressive. Well, I guess this is a perfect segue because today's episode is all about Fabric and more specifically for metadata-driven pipelines. Just to set some context for our listeners and viewers, do you mind sharing a little bit of an explanation for what you might be sharing with us today with, I know you have like a deck presentation and also a demo.
Yeah, so what I've built based on all the feedback I got from from customers as well, like how can we build something like a metadata-driven framework for Fabric, which can be really used by the community. And I think that's the key thing. We have the Fabric community conferences, but this session or this podcast is as well for the community. So let me share my screen and walk you a little bit through what does actually mean a Fabric metadata-driven framework. I think the framework meets most of your needs, and you will have full control of all the design and features because it is open source on GitHub. You can scan that, or you can scan the QR code, and you can directly go to GitHub, and you will see all the code over there. It's a quick start. Like we had some frameworks in Azure Data Factory, we had some stuff in Synapse, but like it was mostly out of the box, and you were not in control of all the features. The framework will give you a lot of flexibility and extensibility, so you can really add new sources yourself based on really existing pipelines already. It's pretty easy to do. And of course, I think when you have a framework where you can start as a toolbox, you will have lower upfront cost. So looking to metadata frameworks, efficient data management is a cornerstone of I think a lot of the modern organizations. And leveraging the right tools can make all the difference. The faster you can build some stuff, the easier it will be, and the easier your business will adopt Fabric as well, or the reports. I think the Fabric data metadata driven framework is a cutting edge solution designed to optimize data handling and utilizations. And of course, the framework harnesses the powerful capabilities of Fabric SQL database. So we're using a Fabric SQL database, we're using Fabric data pipelines, and we're using Fabric notebooks to have this flexible architecture. And everything is built mostly on the Medallion architecture. And I think that's already known by a lot of people. What I already said, it's scalable, it's cost efficiency, it's streamlined data integration, and enhanced data governance. I'm not going to read all the stuff, but I think for most of you, that's the whole situation. So looking to the framework, and this is the high level overview. So we have pipelines, we already said, we have notebooks. We're using a data landing zone. I will explain that a little bit later on. The bronze layer and the silver layer. So we are not facilitating in this framework the gold layer because there's a lot of business logic in the gold layer, and you cannot really automate it out of the box for everyone. But a lot of stuff here you can automate, and of course we will log all the processes, and of course we will use the Fabric SQL database as the data orchestration method. So it will give you a creation of different environments. So I'm showing you now currently a develop and a production environment. But if you want to make 10 environments, it's up to you. It's flexible. You can name it whatever you want to name it. And of course, there's one workspace necessary to do all the orchestration. So we have a separation, as you can see, based on the data and the code, because that's also because of security reasons. Because people who need to have access to the data don't need access to the code where all the pipelines and the notebooks live. Because if people are going to change notebooks or pipelines within your framework, because all the code is in your existing environment, then your framework will never work. But using the data, that's a different approach as well. And that's the same that we have a separate workspace for all the data orchestration and logging information, so that nobody will touch the SQL database. Only people who are allowed to touch the SQL database to change settings can go in there. And of course, what I said, in every data workspace we have set up, we are following the Medallion architecture. And I think a lot of people can discuss about it, about separation of workspaces. In this framework, we choose to build one workspace for the data environment, with the data landing zone, where all the files are getting in, structured, unstructured, incremental loads. The data is, and it will be, we are using the file structure in the data landing zone. So the date type file structure is in there, and there is no schema because it is all in files, Parquet files, CSV files, whatever you want to have. And the next step is, of course, that we have the bronze layer where we can do some deduplication of data. We can add data types if you want to. The data can still be inconsistent because it is like a copy of the source. So if there's some stuff in there, you want to see that as well. And you will define a schema. And as of the bronze layer, you will see that we're going to use the delta per K format as our open standard. And then the last layer we will facilitate is a silver layer where we can define historical data types, data quality rules, data cleansing, validated data, but still no business data. So the business data is really the part of the gold layer, of course. So the next step, what you will see, and I will show it in a couple of seconds live, all the data pipelines and notebooks which you are seeing on the screen are automatically deployed and are also connected to each other. So there's one orchestration pipeline we call the load all, which will execute the landing zone objects, we will execute the bronze layer afterwards, and we'll execute the load silver. So it's still like the steps following each other. So currently all the supported sources are SQL Server, Data Lake Gen 2. You can use One Lake tables. So if you're using shortcuts, you can use them as well. You can use the One Lake files if you want to manually upload files, FTP, SFTP, and if you want to connect to an ADF, you can use to connect to an ADF data pipeline, because if there are some sources or you have already existing environments which you want to use or to include in this framework, you are able to as well. And once you have seen the ADF pipeline, I'm sure you can make also that Synapse pipeline as well to support that one as well. But yes, what we say, it's easy to extend. So these are the supported sources out of the box. And every connection needs a new data pipeline, of course. So currently the connections cannot be parameterized. Only the type in the pipelines can be parameterized. So let's get started. I will show you a little bit how it works. So what we actually have, and everything you can find on my GitHub, but there's one notebook you have to download from that GitHub environment, and you need to have a workspace where you deploy or where you import that notebook into. So there's one notebook, I call it the deployment for multi-environment. You will see the same picture. It will create some lake houses locally for you. You have to define the different capacities for different environments. So for development, production, and configuration. And the configuration is there for the SQL database. Very important for a Fabric SQL database. If you're using a trial license, you can only create 3 SQL or Fabric databases in a trial license. So better, my advice is to use a paid capacity at least to start with, so that you can run everything without any errors. But what I said, everything is documented in GitHub. You can define different workspace roles, the configuration. Here you can see all the different environments you can configure. There are 2 required pipelines, connections you have to create. That is the Fabric SQL connection, which you have to create in the connection pane, and you have to create the Fabric pipelines. These are both connections with an OAuth, which you need to create in advance to work all to get all the pipelines working. And then it's just following, it's importing libraries. It will download automatically the deployment file from GitHub. And then you will see all the steps following down the whole road. At the end of the whole process, you will get a workspace. I'm not going through the whole notebook, but you will see that we will have 5 workspaces. So the code for development and for production, the data for development and production. Looking to the data, you will see that we have the data landing zone, the bronze layer, and the silver layer executed. If you go into the code workspace, you will see that we have a lot of data pipelines over here, which are automatically executed. And yes, all the connections you are needed there are replaced with your connection ID. That's the reason that you have to enable or to create that connection in the beginning, and to have to replace the connection IDs over here with your IDs, so that we can replace them during the deployment process. Once you have created that pipeline, you will see that we have different pipelines. In this case, we have a SQL pipeline, which will start with some logging information. So the logging will be written with a stored procedure to the Fabric database. You will do some lookup entities. Then it will do the process. And as you can see over here, to the copy, we are using the new parameterized connection. So the connection ID or the connection GUID is stored in your Fabric SQL database. Going to your Fabric SQL database, you will see that if I do a select top 1000, that all the connections which I have within my system, which are starting with the connection Fabric metadata framework, are automatically added in this situation. So once they start with this prefix, they are automatically added during the deployment process. Going back to that one, you will see that I have a data source name. So that's the name of the database. So you only need to create one connection, and then you can parameterize the database within that server. And then we have the data source retrieval, where we can define in the framework if it is a full load, incremental load, or even you can add a custom query in there as well. So just to show you, select one, select. Over here, you will see I can define incremental loads. I can define the incremental column as well. And you can see as well, I can use a kind of a source custom select. Once you have done that, and all the pipelines are configured and all your data sources are configured, you can run the whole process. And if you run the whole process, what I already said, I have one orchestration pipeline which will execute all the different layers over here. So the landing zone, which will be executed, and the key vault, if needed, is passed through. The same for the bronze layer and the same for the silver layer. Of course, getting data into the framework is also there. So what I've done for you, I've created one pipeline. It's called like tooling. And with this pipeline, you can easily add your metadata. Based on metadata, you can add all the stuff within your framework automatically by just executing the main views from your SQL database to get all the primary keys out of there, and will be automatically inserted. So going to that SQL database again to show you all these landing zone and objects you will see over here, and then all the steps will be followed. Looking to the monitoring, you will directly see that all the pipelines will be seen there as well. As you can see, the bronze layer, and that's quite a good thing to mention as well. What I'm using in the bronze layer, or what we are using for you in the bronze layer, is that we are using like a main notebook, which is executing the sub notebooks, so that we can do everything on the same session without losing the session, and we are using less nodes over there. So this notebook will actually execute a big JSON file, and it will be passed through to different notebooks. So as well, for the last part, just to show you, because I think we're running out of time. If I open that notebook, I can, as you can see, I can open that notebook over here. And if I look to the snapshot of the notebook, you will see that I can run different pipelines within that notebook, all the details. So I'm using the run multiple functionality over here. And you will see in the notebook, all the notebooks were executed in like 1.5 seconds. Within that notebook, so that's the last part of this call, is there's a lot of logic in there to check if the columns are incremental, but also to write down all the logic to check if the delta table is already there. It needs to create a delta table. How are you going to add all the columns for merge SCD2 so that we can store in the silver layer, because we are talking about silver, how we can store the historical part of the data. We are tracking all the changes based on Hester values, and everything is by parameters. And all the parameters in here are passed through from the database, from the Fabric database, to your notebook. So we are using a lot of parameters. So hopefully by now it's a little bit clear. The last thing I want to show you, because we are doing a lot of processing, but we have also logging information where you can build your own semantic model on top of it to build your own reporting to be filled. So we are triggering all the workspaces, the entities, because every landing zone or every bronze or every silver layer, we are calling it an entity, the log data, so that we can extract all the number of rows extracted or all the rows which have been updated. So far so good, Connie and Noelle. Just like 5-6 minutes, this is the framework. And yes, people can easily go to GitHub to see all the documentation. I'm just going to show you the last slide with the QR code. If they have issues, they can start logging them there. If they want to start a discussion on GitHub with some questions, they can do it over there. And we're trying to maintain it as much as possible. It's still like for the community, we have to do our normal work as well. But I'm happy to help out there. Do you have any questions left?
Yeah, Yeah, that was a super awesome demo. I feel like I learned a lot about how to set up some pipelines and completely automate the process with parameters. You mentioned that the GitHub is a community where you can kind of comment on and ask questions. Based on that, are there any common challenges that you see surfacing time and time again, and how do you usually recommend customers overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so I think a lot of these problems or challenges has been solved in the last week of March with the new connection parameters or the dynamic content parameters. Because previously we had to create all the connections, and then you deploy it to a customer, and then you had to replace all the GUIDs with the existing IDs from the customer. And as you can see now, only we need to replace the connection IDs for the Fabric data pipelines and the Fabric database, which makes our lives easier, the customer lives easier, and it will be easier to maintain for customers as well. Because once you know the connection and you know what kind of data source you want to extract, it's quite flexible, and you can also prepare a lot of more connections. So if you want to add SharePoint list, you already can build that pipeline without having to have that SharePoint list in your own environment or Oracle or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah, super
connection
cool.
parameters, that was champagne for me.
Yeah, is there any other moments that you think would be like the cherry on top, like any future ideation for where you kind of see pipelines, notebooks, Fabric going?
Yeah, I think they're already on the backlog. I think, or hopefully they will be going into this semester planning. That's uh, uh, execute schedules with parameters, or having more schedules to the same pipeline like we had in Data Factory, or which we have in Synapse. So if we get that trigger functionality back to Fabric, we are going to be happy, because that's easier to deploy to customers, easily to build your own solution on top of that. And now we have to create a lot of different pipelines with all different parameters to execute the same process. But if you can add that parameter to a schedule, it will be giving us a little more flexibility.
Yeah, yeah. I think that actually is a feature that like we've been working on that's upcoming, which is super awesome to hear. Is there anything else that you'd like to share inside the data field that you're excited about? Maybe some innovations outside of Fabric or even inside of Fabric. Anything else you'd want to share before we let you go?
No, I think if you start with data, if you want to start with AI, I think the most important thing is to have a good data platform. A lot of people, a lot of customers, they say, we need to start with AI, but they don't have a data platform. So how can you do a good? How can you build data agents on top of data if you don't have the data properly cleansed or validated, or what kind of stuff? So my advice is that start using a framework like this, or start using commercial products like this, which can help you to automate a lot of your processes, and that you can focus on data quality, that you can focus to build all the semantic models in your data marts on top of that, or on your gold layer. Because if your semantic model is properly modeled and the properly defined, your data agents will be better, your co-pilots will work better, and I think that's all what we want.
Yeah, cool. Noelle, is there anything else that I'm missing here or any other questions that you had?
No, that was really awesome. We are so happy to have you on our podcast, Erwin. This was super informative, and we love hearing your thoughts and on what you would like to be improved in Fabric. We really hope that we're able to have you again to share more of the things that you're working on.
Thank you for having me.
And a huge thanks to Mike and Erwin for joining us today. We hope you were able to learn something new.
Before we go, we'd just like to encourage all of you to continue to engage with us by sharing feedback or suggesting new topics in the comments below. If you're interested in getting involved, like joining us as a guest, please reach out to either me or Connie. We'll have our contact information linked in the description. And also, don't forget to follow the Data Factory team on social media. We have our YouTube, we have a Twitter, and many of us are on LinkedIn. And follow us just to stay updated on all our new feature releases and more. See you all next month for the next episode.